Hey guys, what's going on? So I wanted to make this video because I recently had a pretty nasty injury that required surgery, and like anybody who's been through something like that or is looking at figuring out what to do after an injury like that, I scoured the internet. I read a million articles, I watched a million videos, and there's so much information out there, right? Some of it's great, some of it's useless, some of it's somewhere in between or whatever, but some things that were particularly helpful for me were some vlog series like a series of YouTube videos guys had made that kind of chronicled everything from when they had the surgery all the way through the rehab, through the gradual comeback training and everything, and just how they went about it, what their experience was like. One guy in particular, his name was Andy Baker. I believe he's like a strongman powerlifter guy out of the Houston area. He did a series on it. I guess he had this injury 4 or 5 years ago, and his series was very helpful. I highly recommend you watch it. If you search his name, Andy Baker, with distal tendon tear or powerlifter strongman, you'll find him, and I would definitely watch that one as well. But with something like this, it's there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, it's a lot of unknown, right? When you've got uncertainty and the unknown out in front of you, it's very daunting. And so to be able to watch someone kind of talk you through their experience, what to expect, what they did, what worked well, what didn't, is extremely helpful. And I think it really helps reduce the anxiety that you might have if you're looking at something like this. So again, my hope is that like I said, one person who's going through this, or whether it's now or 10 years from now, sees this and they go, man, that helped a little bit. That's all this is about. So I'll start off by just telling you how I did it, because I guess it's somewhat relevant, right? So most people, when they have this injury, it's from lifting, right? It's typically in the weight room. It's like a deadlift. So if you're using like a mixed grip, an overhand, underhand grip, your elbow's slightly bent, and then because of the weight, the elbow goes straight very quickly under load. So you go from like the bicep being engaged to full extension. It puts a lot of strain on that tendon, and it just goes. Sometimes it doesn't. That happens to people all the time, and the tendon does not rupture. But when it does, it's typically through that motion. Obviously, outside of the weight room, it could be just about anything, right? If you're picking anything up and the load shifts, and again, so you're picking up like a couch and holding it like this, and then the weight shifts or it's too heavy and your elbow goes straight, that can rupture. Again, your elbow can do that and it doesn't rupture. It happens all the time. Probably happened to me a million times over the years, but I actually did mine at boxing practice. I was sparring with a guy. I went to throw a right hook, so my elbow was bent. He stepped back, and so again, it's all kind of fuzzy, but I think what happened was, my arm was bent. I threw the hook. He stepped back. I still was going to try and hit him somehow, some way. So I kind of reached with the punch, came out of that kind of bent motion, and went into elbow, full extension. Under, probably trying to throw that punch like, with everything I had, I guess, like an idiot. And, it just, when it went straight, it just went. And it was instant. I knew that second, I'd done something pretty serious. I didn't know exactly what it was. I wasn't like in, agonizing, fall on the ground pain, but I was definitely not, it was a very uncomfortable sensation. So, I kind of walked around for a minute. It was like, hey, is this a strain? Is this a tweak? Like what I do? But I could just look at it and tell, like, man, something's bad wrong here. So it happened on a Friday night. That weekend, I just basically did what I just described. I was watching videos, and what I found was this hook test where, you basically just bend your arm, take 2 fingers, reach in there in the crook of your elbow, and you'll feel that distal tendon. There's one tendon that connects your bicep to your forearm. That's the distal tendon. You can feel it right there. Hey, mine's right there over here. I was like, man, that tendon ain't there. It is now because it's reattached, but at the time, there was no tendon to be found. So I know a lot of times, or there's a lot of buzz out there nowadays, and for good reason, about non-surgical ways to come back from injuries. I'm all about it, and believe me, I was desperately searching to try and figure out, hey, is there a way you can come back from this without surgery? And, if it's a partial rupture, you've got a lot of options. In my case, it had fully ruptured. It had drawn all the way up 9 centimeters, which I think is like 3 inches, 3 centimeters per inch, up to my shoulder. So it was almost up to my shoulder, above the elbow. So in my case, there was no option other than a reattachment surgery. So that's what I did. I got the procedure 10 or 11 days. I think it was 11 days after I had the injury, which is important. Everything I read, and my surgeon also said that, if you have this injury, you want to get it reattached within 2 weeks. I don't know what the magic number, what's magic about 14 days, but I would guess it just has something to do with, eventually that tendon's going to start kind of scarring over, starting to kind of try and heal itself. And so if they reattach it then, it becomes much more difficult. You're looking at more of like a bicep reconstruction as opposed to just a reattachment. And so he did. He got me in 11 days after I had the injury. Surgery went very well. 1 incision, no skin graft. There's 2 things you're worried about. One, that there's not enough tendon length to reattach, so they have to graft a cadaver tendon onto your tendon to get it to reach. The other is if it's so far up there they can't find it or they can't get to it, they have to make a second incision to get it to. I was kind of worried that was going to happen because it was so far retracted, but they were able to find it with the 1 incision, bring it down, and reattach it. So those are 2 big positives. And so, when you leave the hospital, they give you this whole protocol, the pain meds, ice, all that. I just want to say 2 quick things one about the pain meds, one about the ice. So I took 1 pain pill the second night. And the reason I did, not necessarily because I was hurting very badly, it was just because, man, everyone had scared the crap out of me. I mean, it was like, hey, listen, once that nerve blocker wears off and everything, like, you are going to be in a lot of pain. They drill a hole through your radius or your ulnar bone, and the tendon's pulled through, and they attach it on the other side. And I'm thinking, man, that's pretty traumatic, right? So that I'll probably feel that tomorrow or in 48 hours or whatever. It definitely, I knew something had happened in there, but I did not have a ton of pain. And that's not me trying to be like a tough guy or something. I just didn't have that much pain at all. And so I didn't take any pain meds after that 1 pill, didn't take Tylenol, didn't take Advil. And my advice to anybody who is going through this or is looking at going through this, if you don't have to take those meds, don't take them. And, the whole opioids and all that, that's not even what I'm talking about. What I'm referring to really is, if that pain or that discomfort, that's your body telling, your repairing mechanisms like, hey, it's time to go to work. Like, you got something bad wrong there, like, you got to get to work and fix that, heal that, repair that. If you're taking those pain meds, I mean, it suppresses that. It has to, right? If you don't feel pain all of a sudden, your body thinks everything's fine. So you're not going to, I don't think, heal as effectively, particularly those first few days. Because I got to imagine, like, those first 2 weeks, your body's like going into overdrive, trying to deal with this, trauma that's happened internally. And so the more things you can do to not suppress that, I think you're going to be better off long term. Again, I'm not a doctor, not a physical therapist, not a pharmacist, okay? It's just kind of logic, and maybe somebody who is a lot smarter than I can substantiate that. So I didn't have to take my physical therapist, not the one at the hospital, but someone who I've seen for years. She's got her own private practice. She's incredible, but she's got a great barometer for when you should take pain meds. And that is, if you are in so much pain that you can't sleep, okay? So, in that instance, like when you're sleeping, that sleep is so important, particularly when you're dealing with something like this. That's when your body is maximizing its repair and recovery and all those things. If you're not able to sleep because you're in so much pain, you need to take your pain meds. You need to do whatever you need to do to get to sleep, because that is more important than, hey, I don't want to take these pain meds because it's going to suppress my inflammation response. Well, if you're awake all night long because your arm hurts so bad you can't sleep, you're kind of, you're missing out there. You need to get rest. And so if you have this procedure and your arm hurts enough to where you can't sleep, take your pain meds. The other thing is with ice, I know there's a lot of, in the strength and conditioning community, there's a lot of back and forth on the pros and cons of using ice. I think my hospital protocol said to ice it every 20 minutes. Maybe it was like ice it for 20 minutes every hour or two or so, whatever. I didn't ice it one time, okay? And the reason for that is twofold. One, again, knowing that I have no qualifications, just utilizing common sense. Ice numbs the area, right? And it restricts blood flow to the area. I didn't want either of those things. I wanted the inflammation response to be very active, alive, whatever you want to call it. And I wanted as much blood flow in there as possible. I didn't want to restrict the blood flow to the surgery site. So I didn't have a ton of swelling. My hand kind of swelled up, got a little, marshmallow hand looking thing, but it wasn't bad. And again, it wasn't a lot of pain. So no ice, didn't use any ice. And again, if you have your distal tendon reattached and your arm is swelled up like a balloon and you're having agonizing pain, throw some ice on there, man. I mean, that's not, I can't imagine there's a one size fits all for this or any medical procedure for that matter. I think there are certain principles that always hold true no matter what your situation, and certain variables that are going to apply based on the individual. And so didn't use any ice, and again, next to no medications. And so what I'm thinking, I'm going to do a couple of part series as far as chronicling this process. I'm going to just kind of go into what I did just the first few days after the surgery. Right now, I'm 4 weeks post-op, about 4.5 weeks post-op. And so I will say, I've seen, the video, some of the videos I saw, guys came out with these big, locking braces that kind of locked your arm at 90. And then I guess like every 2 weeks, they would kind of loosen it up, and gradually you see like my arm still won't go full extension, but if that's 180 degrees would be straight, it's not that far off. And again, for 4 weeks, I think that's really good. I'm going to go with that. But in my case, all I got was like a surgical dressing, but it almost kind of casted the arm in that position, but in a sling. But my arm was about here, coming out. So I was never locked in that 90-degree position, which, at first I was kind of like, did my doctor mess up? Like, did he forget to or something? At any rate, I don't know. I mean, my range of motion is slowly but surely coming back. But at any rate, I was in a sling at about there when 110, 130 degrees. I don't know, need my protractor. But, as far as what I did activity-wise, I had a goal the day after surgery to walk. That was it. I just wanted to get up, go outside, and walk. I was able to do that, not very far. I mean, I probably walked for maybe 10 minutes. One time that day after and came back. But every day after that, I walked a little bit further. There is plenty of, and maybe a little of it's bro science, maybe a little of it's, there's probably, like an Andrew Huberman would probably, I know he's done more scientific analysis and has more, actual facts to speak to with what I'm about to say. But the sunlight it stimulates the growth response. It awakens your senses. It awakens your whole system. It's obviously going to increase blood flow and circulation, which is exactly what you need, after something like this. And so I tried to do that as much as I could. Get out there in the sun. I had my surgery in August. I'm in Georgia. It's hot. So it was great. I'd walk around, sweat, I'd heat up. I would even sit outside when I got home. I would just sit there after I'd go for a walk for as long as I could, just to, I don't know. I think, again, like, in my opinion, unqualified, uneducated opinion, the worst place you could be after something like this, particularly this injury when, everything else is fine, is sitting in your living room, staring at a TV. I think the more you can move around, the better. Obviously, if you just, had your ACL repaired, you're in a boot, in crutches, you can't really go for a walk, but you could still get outside, right? And just sit in that sunlight. If nothing else, just for your mental sanity. And so I did a lot of walking, and then I started doing some small workouts 3 or 4 days after surgery. And small, I mean like, some lunges, split squats, just real basic movements that, no weights or anything, no machines, just like that. And so that was probably the first week after my surgery. And so I'm going to show, this will cut to a couple of exercises I did in weeks kind of 2 and 3. Just some general suggestions for what you can do with this injury, and things that have helped me through the first month of this process. And so the next video is going to be kind of what I was able to do with the bad arm, the injured arm. And I got this actually from my hospital PT. So, hospital physical therapy departments, I think probably some are just like anything else. Some are great, some are terrible, and some are somewhere in between. I actually got a lot of useful information from my hospital's physical therapy department. The exercises were kind of, whatever, but as far as them telling me, because intuitively I thought, hey, I think I can do this. I think I can do, wrist extension and flexion. I think I can work on my grip, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to, be sitting there with like I bought all these Captain or Crush grippers because I was like, but I was like, wait, I'm not going to be squeezing and all of a sudden like pop my freaking tendon back off. So I was able to ask them those questions and get some, concrete answers. Yes, you can do this, but make sure you're in this position when you do it. And don't do, things that just keep you out of trouble, but also give you the peace of mind to know that yes, you can train these things, you can work on these things without risking, a re-injury. And so that was very helpful. And so I'm going to go through some of those things, what those are, what I was able to do, and then some videos about lower body training with my good arm, exercises I was doing with that. I know a lot of folks have cited, that there is legitimate evidence, I guess, that training this side will help. Obviously there's a systemic reaction, right? Even though you're only using this arm, your whole nervous system, everything is still registering that you are training. And some of that, again, with my completely uneducated, uninformed opinion on this, but something is transferring over to the injured side, right? It has to. And so I think there's some benefit there. And if nothing else, again, what I'll keep referring to is just for your own mental stability or just positive mindset towards this whole thing. I think the fact that you can do something versus just sitting and waiting and feeling like you're helpless is very, very, very powerful. And I think it helps. I think it helps. I know it helps your mental well-being, but I think there's also a physical benefit as well. I think you really do. I think when I begin to start training this other arm, which is hopefully in about 11, 12 days, I think the road to getting back to what I was doing before, I think it will be shorter, and I think it will come back much quicker than had I just listened to the stock advice when you get this procedure is no activity, don't lift anything heavier than a coffee cup for 6 weeks. So I think Andy Baker, who I referenced earlier, he actually did that. He thought he was in a sling for 6 weeks and didn't do anything heavier than a coffee cup, but then I think they told him another 6 weeks after he came back, and he's like, all right, that's not going to work, and then he got a game plan together to start getting back on track. And so I, went another route. I saw some other guys that had, done a lot of lower body training, had done a lot of single arm stuff, and so that's what I've done. And again, 4 weeks and change. This is, God, it's obviously it's very atrophied, which is what do you expect when your arm is basically in this position. I'm just going to talk about the sling real quick and then wrap this video up. Like I said, I don't want to make these things too long, and I want to kind of make a series of sorts so you can kind of see the progression. But as far as this sling goes, so I wear it now. I wore it a lot, obviously, when the first few weeks or whatever, because that's, you have to, you're going to want to. It's going to feel the most comfortable in that position. But after, I would say probably week 2.5, 3, I started taking it off a lot more and just kind of letting the arm hang to just get just a gravity stretch. But I wore it. I decided, kind of made 3 rules up in my mind about when I was going to continue to wear it. Three instances. One is in a crowd, and that's not like 100 people. That's like more than 3 or 4 people. Only because if you're in that sling, it's a subconscious thing. Like, people are gonna be more careful around you. One of your buddies is not gonna like grab your hand. What's up, man? How you doing? You know, shake your hand real hard, or anything that even like, it's a very, very low probability, but it can happen. Like, let's say someone bumps into you, trips, you know, whatever. You lose your balance, you fall down. You got to go out and catch yourself. Like, there's a million things that could happen that you would never think would happen. They just freak accidents where you could re-injure. You put that sling on, people give you distance, or they're more cautious around you and everything. It's just preventative more than anything else. And so if I'm in a crowd of people, even when my kids, like if they got friends over and stuff and they're running around the house, I just put that thing on. They kind of stay away. And so I think that's a good rule of thumb. The other is like when I'm working around the house. Maybe I'm just grabbing some things or moving something in the garage. You know, I'll forget. They say the 3 ways people typically re-injure are lifting something, right, with this bicep engaged, going into something in full extension. That's typically a fall, like you go to like brace yourself and your arm goes straight, and supinating. So that's like, they said the most common way that happens if you go to like turn a hard door handle and you really kind of ground into it, it'll re-rupture that tendon. And so if I'm like picking things up around the garage, moving things around, I'll make sure to you know, put that sling on so I won't just forget. It's just I think it would just be a momentary moment of forgetfulness where you go to pick something up, you know, with your good arm, and you can't get it, so you go in there with the right arm to like help and re-injure it. So it's, again, more of just a reminder. And then the third time is when I'm training, like when I'm in the gym, because same situation. Like, you might know your arm's jacked. You're not in there, you know, trying to do a pull-up or something, but let's say you go to grab a plate and it kind of, you know, loses its balance, and you go to grab it with the other hand. Or you just forget, and just out of habit, you just go to grab something like a dumbbell or something, and you put that sling on, you will not use that arm. It'll stay by your side. It'll stay protected. And so those are the 3 kind of sling principles, if you will, that I've been using to just, you know, again, the rest of the time, I let it hang. Like when I go on walks now, I just let it hang. I don't wear the sling. And so at any rate, that is it for this video. Again, I don't want to keep these things to go too long, but like I said, I'm going to do a few more. And just the next one, I'm going to talk about, you know, what I was able to do with my good arm, as well as some rehab techniques that I've been using that I think have really helped the recovery, and you know, gotten me more range of motion, less of that nerve pain that comes with, not nerve pain, whatever, nerve sensation that comes with this surgery. And so, yeah, next video I'll run through some of that stuff. So appreciate you watching. And again, if you have a question or something, you're about to go through this, fire away. Like I said, it was incredibly helpful for me when I was going through this. And again, I'm still right in the midst of it. I'm 4 weeks, you know, after a surgery. So I'm by no means, you know, on the complete other end of this. But yeah, feel free to just drop me a line, and I'll be more than happy to answer or try to answer. So appreciate it.